Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Toy, a film critic for FilmBook. Today I will be reviewing the movie Love and Monsters. Love and Monsters is a movie directed by Michael Matthews. It is written by Brian Duffield and Matthew Robinson. It stars Dylan O'Brien, Jessica Henwick, and Michael Rooker. So, vampires and zombies have apparently run their course. Now we're back to the classics, monsters. With Monster Hunter coming out later this year, and now with Love and Monsters, which we're going to be talking about here. Now let me just put it out there that one of my biggest pet peeves with a movie is when you go to an action or a comedy and it's undercut by like a 30 to 40 minute romance subplot. Well, the good thing about this movie is that it puts it right out there for you. Love and monsters. The question is, how good is the love story and how cool are the monsters? So the film opens up with so much promise. I love the cartoon montage where they describe how the world has basically come to an end and 95% of the population is obliterated by these monsters. I loved the whimsical, comic-y sort of way that this movie did that. But then as the movie progressed, the entire time I couldn't stop thinking Zombieland. It was basically the same premise, just replace the zombies with monsters and there you got it. Monsterland. Dylan O'Brien basically played Jesse Eisenberg's Columbus. Michael Rooker was meant to play Woody Harrelson's Tallahassee. The little girl here was obviously Little Rock. And I guess we'll call Boy the dog Wichita. Come on, I'm kidding. Boy is so much cuter than her. But there's one crucial difference. It seems like nobody here in Love and Monsters was having as much fun as they had making Zombieland. Now, all I know about Dylan O'Brien is that he played the voice of Bumblebee in the latecomer 2018 Bumblebee. He was also in those Maze Runner movies, which I never saw, but some parts of this movie kind of made me think back to the trailers that I may or may not have seen. But this kid, Dylan O'Brien, he just, for the first act of this movie, seemed either boring or bored. I couldn't tell the difference. As the movie went on, he seemed to grow a little bit more comfortable in his role, and he got a little bit better. The little girl who played Minnow had the potential to steal the show, along with Michael Rooker. They just weren't given a big enough role in this movie. And speaking of Michael Rooker, you know him as Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy, as well as Meryl from The Walking Dead, and you will not remember him as Clyde in this movie. One of the biggest problems I had with this movie was that it never took the time to actually allow a scene to breathe within the confines of a comedic scene. There were long stretches of time between one joke and another joke. And I checked IMDb, it's listed as an action comedy, and there was just very little comedy to be had. That's one of the biggest problems I have with comedies. I feel like when a studio is forced to categorize their movies in a genre, they have like multiple choice and you have to pick a minimum of 3. So they'll click off action, somebody dies, so they'll click off drama, but they have to check off 3. There's really nothing scary in it, so they can't categorize it as horror, so they're gonna check off comedy as the default. And that's exactly what this movie did. I gotta say, there was one scene that I really loved in this movie, and it was just emotionally charged, it was gorgeous to look at, and then it just cut short, and I felt let down. I was angry because I wanted that to go on just a little bit longer. It was just a good emotional scene. Point is, night jellies just might be the best thing to happen to us in 2020. What's weird is this movie really isn't anything like Stranger Things, yet it was trying so hard not to be Stranger Things. It was so passive-aggressively 80s for no reason whatsoever. Like down in the bunkers, they had like a Ferris Bueller poster, and they just, all these little 80s homages for really no reason. Even though in these bunkers were like a lot of old people, it was odd. One portion in particular screamed "Stand By Me" so loudly, but at the same time, you just knew the writers were hoping you wouldn't catch on that this was a direct take from Stand By Me. 2 scenes back to back. It was like, oh, they're playing the song and then they're doing the thing from Stand By Me. And it was like, do you want to be an 80s film? Do you not? Like, they could have said it in the 80s. It was like they had the passion for 80s nostalgia, yet couldn't really figure out how to fit it in there properly. At the very beginning, they established a weakness in Dylan O'Brien's character, and it never really came to play. Like, they made it very clear, like, when a monster shows up, he does this thing, but then he really never did the thing in the whole movie again. This is one of those movies where they set things up, but then they never really play out throughout the rest of the movie. And there were just so many tropes, like the radio cut out at the exact moment where it shouldn't after they spent 3 minutes just chatting about nothing. You know you have a few minutes before the radio cuts out. You might want to cut out the chit chat. There were other rote things that happened, like a character would show up at the last minute to save the day, and that wasn't the movie I wanted to see. I was excited about this movie because I fully believed that it wasn't going to go down that route. This movie should have been a lot quirkier and edgier than it was. It's like the writers had the right intentions and they wanted to make this like gothic-y, steampunk sort of movie that pushes boundaries. But then the studio got a hold of it and they just wanted this typical old-fashioned run-of-the-mill action movie. And they got their way because they had to pay. So in the end, not a lot of love, not a lot of monsters, but a lot of drama. I will say the very end of this movie, it had a very anti-COVID vibe. Like, get out of your houses, get out of your bunkers, go live your life, forget the dangers and the viruses all out there destroying people. And you know, I respect that. I'll say this, it wasn't a bad movie, but it was a boring movie. I don't regret watching it, but I'll never think about it again. So I'm going to give it a 5 simply because I feel very neutral on it. And that brings us to the conclusion for my review of Love and Monsters. Thank you for watching. But if you want to see some of my other film reviews, type in Andrew and Sarah Beth Toy in YouTube, or if you don't want to type that in, you'll find that link in the description below. There you'll find me talking about movies and my wife Sarah Beth tolerating it. But more importantly, don't forget to check out the rest of FilmBook. That's film-book.com. If you like this review, click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell to get alerts for new videos. But I know that there are some of you that disagree with my review. If you do, I would love to hear from you. Leave your comment below, because if we don't disagree on things, then what do we have to talk about? Please also consider being a Patreon on our Patreon, or the other way around. Links in the description below. You know how to do that. Click on that and that will help us to produce more engaging content for you.